Well, I mean, okay, fine. I'm playing drums.
Oh, yeah, Vietnam for sure. That does take me back there.
Yeah, I wish we'd have put that on the podcast.
I'm Scott Tyler, and I love 11 Life.
Welcome to the 11 Life podcast.
Hey guys, Matt here. Welcome to 11 Life. I'm so happy you're spending time with us right now in your podcast world. This week we have an awesome show. Davey and I get to sit down with America's premier teeny tiny folk band, the Rough Tumble, and catch up with them again. They're almost regulars on the show at this point. They're personal friends of mine, and we absolutely love hanging out and dishing. They've been spending a few days here at the Rock Candy Recording Studios in Asheville, and we happen to have a really fun conversation about creativity and about songwriting and what it feels like to be afraid that you may not be able to write any more songs and what it feels like when that well of creativity has dried up. We also got to talk about our experiences in Protestant Christianity and how it affected what we thought creativity was and how it affected how we wrote songs and what we thought we were supposed to be writing about. It's a really fun conversation, maybe a little personal, maybe a little bit vulnerable, but that makes for great podcasts. Just a quick reminder to everybody who is spreading the word about 11 Life. We're seeing it happen. We're seeing the numbers grow. We're seeing people getting involved with the 11 community and an 11 family, and we love it. It's so much fun. Thank you for telling your friends about our podcast. Thank you so much for hitting the subscribe button. Yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and give you a show.
What have you guys been doing all day? Just like booking and stuff?
Yeah, booking. Mallory redesigned our website. Or
sweet.
like updated it.
Yeah, just updated it.
Squarespace?
So you guys decided to do like a whole computer day of just like musician stuff.
Yeah.
What does that normally look like for you?
True or false?
True or false?
True or false?
True or false?
How many?
I'm going to say 3.
Right.
True or false? Yes, computer. What does that usually look like?
Looks like Facebook. It looks like a lot of Gmail.
Looks like stealing other people's internet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to steal what's freely given.
Tell that to
I mean,
Starbucks.
You can send that to Starbucks.
And to the Walmart parking lot.
Does Starbucks like kick you off after a certain amount of time?
Not anymore.
We have not been kicked off of Starbucks.
Okay.
Is that because of the thing that happened at Starbucks?
No. Oh, no. No, not because of that.
Wait,
It was
actually,
like
I don't
that
know what this
before.
is.
Matt
What happened was- I don't know
doesn't listen to the news. He
I
doesn't
don't know
understand
anything
current
about
events.
the news. I literally just live down here in the cave, and that's it. And I
Yeah,
don't
there
know.
was there were some guys who were in a Starbucks and they were like escorted out by police, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it ended up being a very hot button racial issue.
They weren't doing anything wrong. They
Yeah,
were
they
just
didn't. No, they were,
literally
like,
sitting
waiting for
there
their
waiting
friend.
for their friend.
Yeah,
And that was it?
and they were
Yeah.
escorted out. Yeah,
Yeah,
by
the manager
cops.
called.
What?
It led to
Yeah.
like a huge release by like the founders of Starbucks where they're like, yeah, this is not at all what we support. And all of our employees are going through awareness
Like
and inclusion
racial
training.
sensitivity.
Yeah.
Racial
training.
sensitivity
And they-
training, yeah.
they actually like took like half a day off or a whole day off.
Which
or
actually does say a
something is what I-
lot for a company that big to
Right.
commit to the amount of labor that
Yeah.
costs.
Yeah. Yeah, but and I feel like in this kind of climate, you don't really have a choice. When something like that happens, you're like, if it happened here, it's probably happened somewhere else, so we haven't heard about it.
Mhm.
And like, we're probably a little bit behind the 8 ball.
Right, and also they're anti-Christmas.
That's true.
So
We all know
Starbucks.
that. That's why
Right.
we go there.
Right.
We get so tired.
Scott, catch up.
Catch up.
But you guys have these days in your band. I kind of feel like this is what the new deep work looks like for indie musicians, particularly indie musicians who are striving to sort of exist within this middle class of musician that's happening.
I wouldn't call it middle class.
You're right. Let's put it more on the poverty musician.
Yeah, there's this line that
Like we don't
teetering on.
pay taxes. That's how.
They don't pay taxes
Low
and the
we are.
government's cool with it.
Yeah.
Right. The government's like,
We're
you know what?
trying.
You do you. We'll let you know
Yeah.
when we
That's
need
more than
something
we
from
do.
you. Yeah, but like I feel like bands these days have to be a cottage industry. You have to have your hands in so many different things. You have to be a web designer. You have to kind of be like a semi audio engineer, you're running point on your sound that you have at shows, no matter who the sound guy is. You're always having to liaise on that. You are constantly having to budget for different things, for albums, and particularly for you guys, you live on the road, you live out of your camper. And so everything that you do has to be meticulously sort of gone through with a fine tooth comb, and you don't have a good work-life balance. I'm actually projecting that on you. I don't have a good work-life balance. I'm assuming that because you are musicians.
Matt,
I know you don't have a good work-life
We've been
balance.
staying at your place for like the last week. You know
We have no
don't
balance
have
anymore.
work-life balance.
Well, I think to an extent that's true, that we don't have a good work life. Like we literally just sat on the computer for hours on end today.
Yeah.
And you came in, 2 or 3 times, and you're like, hey, there are people out here. There are just people that are existing and having a good time and not looking at screens. And it's so fun. And we were like, go away. Like we need this. Like we need 10 more minutes.
Because you probably put it off for weeks.
Right. Or yeah. And so I think microcosmically, we don't have a good work-life balance. Like a day like today, we don't. But there are other days that we will binge on, going hiking and learning to cook something new. And so it's not that it's not balanced on a macro level, it's just not balanced on a micro level. So a day-to-day sort of schedule is more packed with work or life. But overall, I feel like we do okay.
I mean, I think you guys have chosen to have your work your life, though. I mean, you live in the camper and you drive around the country playing
you kind of chosen to blur that line.
Yeah, there isn't a line.
I almost feel like maybe we can't even call it a work-life balance. Maybe we call it something like responsibility, self-care balance.
Definitely self-care. I think
a good way
self-care
to
is a
look at
really
it.
Yeah. We started implementing Arts and Crafts Day recently.
Is it once a week?
It's once a week.
Yeah. It's actually really fun.
It's like the Sabbath.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
And it's usually just one evening, but it's one 5-hour period where we're not looking at a computer screen either for work or for Netflix. We're just not participating in the blue glow in any way. And we're just trying to make something with our hands, because I feel like sometimes as musicians, we don't feel like we're making anything, even when we're writing or when we're songwriting. It sometimes doesn't feel,
because it's so esoteric. The songwriting process is so kind of up in your head,
right.
and
it's just wavy air, right? Isn't that what?
Oh my god! Even when you finally get something recorded, it's what is that thing? The CD, the vinyl, the packaging, the cover art, or whatever it is literally just a physical representation, of this of literally just micro vibrations happening within the atmosphere of planet Earth in this one tiny little speck.
It's the idea of the micro vibration, because if I'm walking around and I'm humming a song, that's still Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? That's still Michael Jackson's intellectual property.
That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah. So Paul McCartney always said that he never felt like he was really writing the songs. He was just sticking an antenna up and catching songs.
Yeah.
And he was just pulling them down. And
are you just transferring vibrations? Yeah. What do you think about that, Mallory? About that idea of literally just transferring vibrations, almost taking light is vibration.
Sure.
There's so much to the energy around us that we don't understand. We have really vague sort of interpretations of and definitions for. But this idea of pulling something that really is happening, and so many artists say this about their creative process. They say, well, sometimes it's just there, and you just have to be quiet enough. You have to quit vibrating enough to pick up on the other vibrations that are happening. Yeah. And you're sort of transferring it into something.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring this up, Matt.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we just finished reading this book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she talks extensively about what it is to woo your creativity, essentially, and she does actually think about it as something that is, and I think we have adopted this since then, and it's taken an incredible amount of pressure off of us to think of it as something that's outside of ourselves. We are not solely responsible for the creative process. Yeah. We are just responsible for making enough space for it to do what it's going
like
to
allowing
do.
the creative
Yeah,
process.
sure.
Right.
Sure. And that doesn't mean that if you're not creating that, like, it didn't pick you because you're not smart enough or not pretty enough, although that might be true. But like, you just might not be the right person for that thing. It's important to like practice your artistry, your craft, so that like you are prepared for when that idea does come to you. You know what I mean? You don't want to like not have the right tools or skills or anything to be able to transfer that idea. But
it's also an idea that's coming to you. It's not something that you like are just creating out of nothing. Like it's, it's what was the example she gave in the book?
Tom Waits and Leonard
Tom
Cohen.
Waits. Yeah, he was
I
quoted
love
as,
Tom Waits.
And I love Leonard Cohen.
yeah,
he was quoted as saying one time, like, sometimes when he's driving, like an idea will come to him and he'll kind of like swat it away and say, go bother Leonard Cohen
instead,
instead of me. I'm driving.
I'm
here.
driving
busy.
right now.
And,
well, and it also kind of speaks to this idea of like how many people have the same idea at the same time. Like you think you've come up with something really brilliant and you're like, oh man, this is going to be my best idea. I'm going to hold on to it. And then like a year later, or maybe like 2 hours later, you check internet
Right,
and you realize somebody has already thought of it. And
But do you think that's like squash the like an individual who thinks, okay, I've had this great idea and I want to go explore it and I want to dive into it, but now I'm going to Google it to make sure no one else has had it, and so someone else actually had that idea, I'm moving on. When actually if they would have dove into that idea, they would have pivoted 100 times and ended up at something completely different.
Right.
But they're not even going down that path at this
I
point.
actually, like, adding to what you're saying, I think that sometimes the idea transcends whatever words that we have to channel the idea. So for instance, they're like, I love bringing up this example that like, if you really sit down and look at Chris Martin's lyrics, they're basically like 5th grade reading level kind of elementary thoughts
up.
and no, shut up. No, I mean like
I'm mad. I'm too cool for Coldplay.
No, go ahead. Actually, let me get to my point before you shit on me. But there's something so honest and sincere and connecting about the way in which he delivers these ideas. They mean so many different things to so many different people, and it's not necessarily that he's channeling some great lyrical work that is transforming the face of the planet, or people's minds. It's that he's using these words as vehicles for simply connecting with the rest of humanity in a really intimate and sincere way.
Right.
And I think the simplicity of the lyric is the beauty of the lyric, though, right?
Yeah,
I
but
mean, it's like,
is that the artistry? Is the artistry
think so, yeah.
actually, or is artistry interchangeable with vulnerability? Is your artistry literally learning how to be more vulnerable?
Yeah, I think that it can. To address your point, Davey, I feel like as far as, I don't think you should give up on an idea just because someone else has done it.
Yeah.
I think I'm totally on board with that. I think there's like a proverb that says, you never stand in the same river twice. Like that even if you return to that same river and you step in it, the river is always moving and you never actually step into the same river twice. And
that's beautiful.
And there's also, I'm trying to think of that other, I'm going to leave that behind for a second. We went to address this idea of like whether or not you just need to do it with earnest, if that's artistry, essentially is what you're asking, right? I don't know if that's true. I do know that sometimes it does work though. I don't know if there are ways, like singular ways to get to creativity or to get to good art. I think there are a lot of different ways. We went to a folk conference. Nerd alert.
Yeah.
I went to a folk conference last week.
Which makes sense because you're America's premier teeny tiny traveling folk band.
Yes, we are the only one. Don't Google it. We are the only one. And we went to this folk conference and I was talking to somebody about somebody that they played with who was going to be doing a showcase later that night. I was like, oh, what is he or she like? And and they said, oh man, they are so good. And then they kind of backed up and they said, well, they're not so good. It's just the lyrics are something that are so simple and anybody could have written them. But the way that they deliver it is so earnest that right at the point where you think this is the cheesiest thing I have ever heard, the next thing you find out is that you are singing along and like fist pumping in the air some sort of folk ballad. You know what I mean? Like you just can't you can't resist it because it's so attractive, it's so meaningful, it's so earnest. So I think you can get to good art that way, or you can at least get to a good performance that way.
Yeah, like a meaningful experience with sharing with other people. I think what's really great about songs that are just so earnest is that I realize that I can't write them. Like I realize that like I haven't been that earnest in my own life. Like there's this real like strength in being that vulnerable.
Yeah, how do I just allow truth to happen? No matter how simple or basic or unprofound it might seem in the moment, like why? And I do think that there's an artistry to wordcraft. Like clearly, there are people that do it really well. Obviously, why we have poetry and an entire every country has their own literary studies that you could even dive into. It's just like, but when it comes to songwriting, I feel like you're absolutely hitting on something important, which is it doesn't matter the intelligence of what it is that you're saying. What matters is the earnestness, is the honesty of it, is the like, have you ever felt that way before? Yeah. Relatability.
Because it's almost like what you're trying to do is not like teach somebody something. It's more to allow somebody to understand themselves through what you're
through an experience that you've had. Yeah.
When we were younger, we're like, oh my God, every song's so sad. Everything's awful. And every song is so sad. But the older I get, the more I'm like, well, people need sad songs.
I need sad songs.
They need to know that they're not the only sad person.
I need breakup songs.
Yeah, exactly.
I need songs about how am I going to handle life, and it's too much, and the world is fucked up, and I can't make sense of it.
And the song doesn't resolve, and that's great. I need something that doesn't resolve right now.
I need a Coen Brothers film of a song.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's reflective of how little sense it makes to me in the moment. And sometimes life is a Coen Brothers film and you have to sit with it.
It's also not, like songwriting isn't also that sanctimonious. Like sometimes it's literally just, I want to move some notes around for a minute and just see how it goes.
Play.
Yeah.
Sure, 11tyseven's career.
You guys are laughing because it's true. Oh, so nothing else on that?
Nothing else. Literally, like nothing else. I just wanted to say that,
was
like,
punctured. I mean, we can move on with the conversation.
Yes.
Maybe more to the point. Do you ever have? I feel like a lot of artists and songwriters that we talk to and that we're friends with, we always have this weird sort of reoccurring dark night of the soul, and it doesn't just happen one time. It's not like somebody has this one experience in life. It's like almost every time that they decide this is 3 hours, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write a song. I'm going to just, even if I'm just writing down gibberish and words, it doesn't matter. Like I'm just going to discipline myself to sit down here and play and be quiet and just let something happen and write what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, what I'm experiencing about the world to the best of my abilities. And I feel like there's this crippling thought that comes into people's minds, especially my mind, when I sit down to write a song almost every single time that I do it. And it's like, you might not ever be able to write another song again. You might not ever have the discipline to make sure that you have a verse and then a chorus and then and that sounds so crazy to think about all of the artists that we know who have vast catalogs of music. They've done this hundreds of times. They've done it hundreds of times that we'll never even experience, that they've just done in private. Songs and demos that never make it to an actual recording or to an audience. And it's like, what is that thing that tells you, like, you might not be able to write another song again, or you may never end up with something that you're happy with. You may never be able to express yourself in a way that gratifies you, in a way in which you feel heard. Yeah, maybe that's more to the point.
Well, if that feeling persists and you allow it to get to the point where it does inhibit you, maybe you should quit. Like maybe you
Hot
should.
take.
Coming in hot. Unpopular opinion.
I think that if it doesn't bring you a lot of like if sitting down to write a song is so gruesome internally, like if it is just so hard for you to do, if you just can't imagine going through with it, then maybe you shouldn't, because I don't know that creativity is there to put you on a cross. I think that creativity is there to alleviate it. And sometimes it can be really hard, and sometimes it can be, a very soul-searching sort of situation. But if you aren't getting anything out of it, I don't know that you should be doing it. Yeah. And likely what'll happen is you'll step away and you'll say, okay, I'm done. And then I'd be like, maybe I do have a verse idea then. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, think of, oh man, just to be kind of brutally honest, like Scott and I, there have been a few situations in which we were fighting so hard against each other. We're just fighting and fighting. And then it gets to this point where it's like, well, if you don't want to be here anymore, then don't be here. And the other person goes, well, maybe I don't want to be here anymore. Well, maybe we should split up. Well, maybe we will. And then it takes a matter of like 2 seconds before we're like, I don't really want to do that. Okay. We own a camper together. We have this dog.
We'd have to get the duct tape and go straight down the middle of the camper.
Like, how are we going to manage this one? But it's like, but I think that's true with your relationship with your creativity. I think that it can be something that feels at times really stressful and really hard, but you do it because you want to do it.
Yeah.
Right? You do it because you love it.
So you're making the metaphor of like emotional relationship with a spouse is the same relationship you have with your creativity.
Yeah.
However, this, like, your creativity is always going to be there. You can't get rid of it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I, like, Sayla and I could get a divorce and we could be apart from each other. We're not going to do that, babe. But we could. We physically could. You physically can't separate yourself from this thing that is your creativity. It's always going to be there.
Well, I mean, Sayla's still there, though. Even if you divorce her, she's still actually physically there in the world. And you're just choosing not to tap into it.
Your relational connections, however severed, would still be there.
So it's really a communication thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can choose not to communicate with Sayla.
Yeah.
I can choose not to communicate with my creativity.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought was interesting.
I wouldn't recommend either.
Yeah, sure. Right. That's kind of what I thought was interesting about your take on that, Mallory, because you were like, I did not think that was what you were going to say. But I also I've met those people that it's like, it's your artistry is not a burden. Why should it be? If it is, go find something else to do. Go cut the grass. Like, go make dinner. I feel like for me, my artistry or my songwriting or just creating songs, creating music, creating, putting ideas out into the world, being able to express myself in that way is one of the most cathartic and fulfilling things that I do in life. And I feel like my ego, when I sit down to begin that process, tries to keep me from it. It tries to, I don't know, there's something that tries to keep me from the joy of experiencing something that I worked really hard at and that I put time and focus and attention and energy into, because there's so many different things in life that are constantly telling you to quit paying attention, and everything's too overwhelming and you'll never know all of it, and why even try, because you'll never be the best at it. And I feel like that's the worst way to look at almost anything in life, because you rob yourself of the joy of process. Yeah. It's
self-sabotage, right?
Right.
I mean, you're just like, you're afraid of something in that process, and it's I mean, I do that all the time, and I think the only way around it is just to keep doing it, right? Is just to like keep writing, even though it's.
Do you have specific really ways of like snapping out of that?
Well, I think mowing the lawn. I think like making dinner,
manual labor.
Scott, you literally don't have a lawn.
But I have a lawnmower.
His whole world is the lawn, Mallory.
He just rides
my
lawn.
The median is my lawn.
The median is my lawn. Yeah. Been mowing lawns at rest stops. It's I mean, just like taking a break, like not putting so much pressure on yourself, just like understanding that the reason that you got into this in the first place was because it was fun.
Yeah.
And then just trying to reconnect with that sense of fun that that you had originally.
Nobody's going to care if you write that song or not except for you. Nobody cares. Like, it might be great on the other side.
Sure.
People might really care once it's out there, but if you do or don't, you personally do or don't, nobody cares. It's not that important.
Mm-hmm.
The world is not going to change because you did or did not write that song. Also, it like super matters if you do. Like to you, like it changes you, and it could change other people. You know, like it not being there yet hasn't changed anything.
I love that. Keep
Thanks.
going.
I just really don't know where. That's as far as I got in my head, and then
It's like good. It's a part of you is what I'm hearing it say. It's like you can't sit there and say I'm only going to do something if the rest of the world validates me in doing it. I feel like it's something that we keep hitting on
that's
the podcast.
a waste of time. It's such a waste of time.
Sure. And I think we're aiming this specifically at songwriters right now, which
Who else would it apply to?
I suppose everything. But what I want to ask the group is,
Yes,
if someone does write songs and is in that moment where they're like, oh, well, I shouldn't do this right now. I should go do something else because there's something else that I should be doing right now. Something else is maybe worth my time, where like the return on investment emotionally, physically, monetarily for me sitting down and spending the time to get this thing out might be less than it would be if I went and did this other thing that I also have some sort of passion for. Like in those moments, like, what do you do? What do you choose? Do you choose the one that's like the one that is clearly the artistic endeavor, and the one that's super ethereal, and the one that has like unlimited upside and unlimited downside?
right.
You know what I mean? The floor is way down and the ceiling is way up, both emotionally and physically and everything. Or the one that's like doesn't really have a downside and has a fairly good upside.
Why do you have to choose though?
Because you only have 24 hours in the day.
Sure. But how are you managing that time too? Like
Trying to decide which one to do.
right, exactly. Like I kind of wonder if there's, I mean, sure, there are definitely decisions that you have to make sometimes when it comes down to like certain gigs that we get and like what songs to put on the record and stuff like that. Sometimes there are real decisions like that do.
But you
need
can
to be
waste your life
made.
debating yourself.
Absolutely.
You can rob yourself of
but
actual
there's like
things.
no wrong decision.
Right.
Isn't that stressful? I think that is the stressful part, is that there is no wrong decision. There's just the next decision. And a lot of times if you look around it, there's not even a decision to be made. Like, do you have to give up everything that you own and the house that you live in and move into a camper in order to be a folk musician? No. And it is not recommended by anyone. Like,
Even the people doing it.
Yeah, don't do that. But like, do you have to work a 9-to-5 job in order to pay the bills, in order to like serve your folk habit at night? No, you don't have to do that either. There are like other ways. Like there are part-time jobs. There are, there's just so many other things that you can do other than like turn yourself into a knot trying to decide what was the right path for you. Like,
Sure, I think the damaging part is when you get yourself into some binary situation. It's like this or that, or that, and it has to be this or that.
right.
When in reality, there are infinite number of like permutations of this or that, and you could do literally any other thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could even go do what's another word for this or that? Some
Quid
other
pro
word.
quo.
Here or there.
There, you could go do there, and it would
Far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's often what we as a songwriter, I will get myself into the this or that phase.
Yeah.
Where it's like straight binary decision, make a decision now.
Right.
And then you're just like, well, I've just cut off something that I didn't have to cut off completely,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like when you're juggling two girls in high school.
It happens to everyone.
Yeah. It's not at all.
Must be a giant person. To be juggling two human girls. in high school.
When you're juggling girls.
Yeah.
Matt went to
I'm
Lawrence
calling
Academy.
Bonham and Bailey right now. If I got a shocker for you guys, God. Yeah, I feel like we've talked about this before on the podcast too, that success is a moving target, and the longer that I'm involved in the music industry, the more I kind of feel like, you know what, maybe it should be, and maybe I'm the most happy when I am enjoying the process and not placing a judgment on where that process needs to end up. That doesn't mean that you can't find ways of being effective.
Right.
But as somebody who chronically beats themselves up, I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, being an artist, but like constantly shaming yourself into like, God, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? You could have done more. If your entire career tanks tomorrow, it's because you could have spent a half an hour more fixing your fucking Wix website.
Oh man,
to,
and look at
to
all
be
these
more
other
SEO friendly.
Yeah, look at all these other artists that were doing what you're doing, and they're way more successful than you. What is wrong with you?
Oh yeah.
Like there are so many camper living folk duos. Like why are they all getting recognized? You know, it's just it's exhausting. That is so exhausting. I was tired just hearing you worry about it.
Of course, because you worry about it too.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think something has happened with the availability of information. Like I can Google something that literally satisfies whatever thing I want satisfied. If I want to feel bad about myself for being a camper living folk band, I can say camper living folk band who are famous into Google, and there's literally 30 famous camper living folk
You don't
bands.
have to Google it to feel bad about yourself, though.
You can just ask Jeeves.
Yeah.
I don't think that was her point there.
No, clearly it wasn't.
But yeah, there's something in the availability of information where like 20 years ago, you might have thought you're the only camper living folk band, and you would have behaved in that way and just gone your entire life being super stoked on that and like and continued down that path, right, that we talked about earlier.
Right.
And you would have just done that thing and not cross-checked yourself over and over and over against all of humanity.
Yeah.
Well, but isn't there like a freedom in knowing that there are so many people doing this thing? Like
Not
we
for
aren't
me.
we aren't confined to a camper for the rest
Right.
of our lives. That's
Right.
not our thing, because so many other people do that thing that it's like, oh, well, I don't have to live in this camper until the day that I die because that's how everyone knows us. You know what I mean? It's not special anymore. It's just another part of us that happens to be true right now.
Yeah. We could change that tomorrow.
Yeah, we could move into a van.
I mean, I think what you're talking about is like change. Like I would refer to this as like the shell of the egg. I feel like there's so many people that like constantly try to recreate the shell, but you really don't know what's inside the egg until you open it.
Right.
The same is true with Hatchimals.
It's very true with Hatchimals.
Which I would only know because Davey's son is like just turned 4 yesterday, and we got him Hatchimals for
We
his
got so
birthday.
many Hatchimals.
But I feel like people can worship the image of the thing, or feel like somehow that image changing the shell will change the contents of the egg. It won't happen.
No.
It doesn't happen. There's anybody, like any Metallica could decide tomorrow to go live in a trailer and do exactly what you guys are doing.
Adorable.
And it wouldn't change who
adorable.
Metallica
That would be the
is.
biggest
You know,
fucking trailer of all time.
Right. Like,
Right.
well, they actually already do this. It's called a tour bus.
Right.
But like,
That must be nice.
it just, I think we get way too hung up on romanticizing our own life, on feeding our own ego, on
or
saying,
on being able to explain ourselves in one sentence.
sure, I don't think anybody's able to do that. I think that's a really good point,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, I think it's like it's just a value proposition. Like, what do I offer to the world? Well, like, what can I get people's tiny little attention spans to understand? And having some gimmick is the easiest way to do that. And it's proved that it works. Like, that's the way to do it. So if you market yourself as a camper living folk band,
Right.
there probably aren't millions of them. There are probably tens of them.
There are lots of them.
Yeah,
we have doppelgangers all over the,
It's
all
true.
over North
You guys should do
America.
like a convoy tour.
We've thought
No,
about
we
it.
totally
Totally,
have.
yeah.
We've thought about actually. Well, it was Scotty's idea. He thought about we would get all of our folk duo friends together and hold a festival
Just the Nomad
and
Festival.
call it the Civil Wars reenactment, because the Civil Wars.
my
Because everybody was
gosh.
like, you guys are like a male-female duo.
How
you're,
clever.
you're like the
It's
Civil
funny,
Wars,
right?
How clever.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's not
See,
that
there's
funny.
infinite marketability there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think the thing that we're coming up against is how are people going to perceive it? How are people going to understand us? How are people going to know us better if we don't have a gimmick, or if we don't hold to the same thing that everybody has known us for? But if you think about like these folk legends or rock legends or something, people who are if you depended on what the audience said, if they try and do something different than the thing that they've always done, if they don't play the hits.
Right.
Half
right.
the audience is furious.
Right.
If they do play the hits, they go, oh man, that's so sad. They're so washed up. They can only play their hits.
That's true.
Like, you know what I mean? It just does. It doesn't matter what you do. Everyone hates you, but also everyone loves you. Like it just.
Mind blown.
Boom.
Everyone hates.
You just sent me down deep depression and brought me into mania immediately afterwards.
Oh my God.
Sorry about that.
Actually, I love that because I feel like this might just be like the yin and the yang. It's like, look, there will always be haters. It's I literally, whenever we started writing the new 11 record, I literally got emails from people that were like, why? Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
true.
yeah, but the thing is, like, that only matters to me if I care about my own image.
Yeah.
If I think that, like, 11tyseven or Matt Langston is this thing that is not allowed to be punctured by people hating on it, and that I cannot exist in a world in which people hate me, that's not true.
I heard something yesterday that really rang true to me and to this situation. It was somebody talking about their grandpa, and he said, my grandpa had this saying, and it was, what other people think of me is none of my business.
Right. I love
That's
that.
good.
Yeah.
Isn't that
true.
great? I heard that. I'm like, that's the stupidest damn
so true.
thing ever. But I'm
'Cause
like, that's incredible.
Coldplay could have written that.
Coldplay, it's actually in the second verse of Fiction.
Right.
My grandpa said this.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't make it for people that hate it. I actually make it for me.
Right.
And then I feel happy that there are some people who gravitate towards it, or
Right.
who it means a lot to. And then it means a lot to me to share that connection with people. But I think I've moved, maybe like earlier on in my career, maybe you guys can relate to this too. Like I feel like the ego of the artist is kind of insatiable. It's like, I will not rest until what success is for me is that the entire world loves me. That whatever this hole is that my absentee father left in my life, I fill with the entire planet, and I will validate myself and I'll prove to everyone. And so many people feel that way, but there's so few people who ever make it past feeling that way. And then they kind of just drive themselves mad, just filling the hole of ego. And it's like, if they have an album that does really well, they have a really, really crushingly hard time having anything that follows that album that doesn't bring them sort of like praise or admiration or affirmation that they did. It's like, all of a sudden it's like, are my thoughts not validated anymore? Are the ways in which I expressed something really true and intimate about myself?
When in reality, it's
not
really
valid?
just like some marketing tactic failed just a little bit more than two other guys. That's it. That's the only reason your new record wasn't popular, because something you decided to do in the marketing side of things, not your actual music, didn't hit a wide enough audience and didn't hit the exact parts of the network that needed to be hit to create this network effect and this, this kind of thing. It's just so arbitrary. And so, like, there's two parts of this. Matt and I have discussed this a lot when we were making this record. It's that there's the music, there's the artistry, and then we know that there's this other part, right? So we decided, we're going to do this part first. We're going to stop doing that part, and we're going to 100% do the other part.
Yeah.
Because to each side of it, they're like diametrically opposed to each other.
Right.
Like one says, stick your antenna up and catch whatever comes down and be true to whatever is coming to you. Then the other one says, yeah, but if you were to just change a few of those words, that's a really cool tagline, and that looks really good in like a Google search. You know?
Mallory, you and I were talking about this because you experienced this happen at one of the panels.
I went to a folk conference.
Yeah, at the folk conference.
Is this the same folk conference?
Same folk
I
conference.
love this because if you're a DIY or indie musician, you've more than likely tried out a conference and gone to a panel in which you thought, I'm going to get tons of really useful information and it's going to be great. I'm going to go home. I'm going to implement this stuff and I'm going to see an effect. And there's so many times where you don't even make it out of the panel before you're like, someone's trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
They're not giving me any information that I can use.
It would have been more useful to just sit at home and download episodes of 11 Life. You know?
Good one, Scott. Nice work.
You don't even have to download.
Yeah.
Just stream it.
You know, that's a good tag. Right? More useful than
Just hit that sub button.
a music conference.
I'm going to
really
open the
helpful.
episode with that, with the episode plugging itself via Scott. But Mallory, what did that feel like for you?
It was awful.
Okay.
Well, it was awful because overall this conference was amazing. Like, I don't want to downplay it. We met other artists. We met, people who are in the industry doing their thing. I just first of all, want to say it was great.
Yeah.
However,
Wait, where was it?
It was actually held in the Montreat Conference Center.
Oh, right on.
Which is separate from the college itself. But
Across the street from the college.
Yeah. Just wanted to make that distinguishing marker.
Yeah.
And it's an international conference. It was the regional version of the international conference, and it's great. It's fantastic. It's really welcoming. It was our first time doing one of these, and it was really good. The problem with being in the folk world, particularly, and this might be true in other genres, but especially in the folk world, there's this huge gap in knowledge between the older generation and the younger generation. And so the kinds of things that they're trying to sell, like the kinds of radio promotion that they're trying to sell and the kinds of managers that they're trying to sell, are often not applicable for young DIY artists. And the older generation does not want to hear about DIY. In fact, we weren't allowed to use that phrase in this particular panel without getting eye rolls. And oh gosh, these kids again. But the younger generation is being told that you need a minimum of $25,000 in order to release a record. And
it's a startup. They basically want you to treat it as a business startup.
Right.
Yeah, which you should, but you don't need $25,000 to release a record.
Right,
That's bad business.
No. Exactly. And so it was a really confusing panel because I realized pretty quickly that, what they're trying to sell me on is this old way of doing things.
They're just very out of touch, right?
Right. And maybe they are in touch still with the way that it's functioning, but
for them, not for everybody,
not for everyone else.
Coming after
and
them.
a lot of people, a lot of the younger people that were in there were there. I just wanted to note that. A lot of the younger people who were in there were just sort of looking at it as you have to be kidding me. This isn't actually how the music world works anymore. And the older generation is going, you don't understand. You haven't been there yet. While the music industry is crumbling underneath them with their jobs.
And the young people are looking at them and saying, you don't understand. No one's there anymore.
Yeah.
Where you've been and how that worked for you doesn't exist.
Because of your archaic thinking, that shit doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And some of the things that, particularly one of the points that was being brought up to us was you cannot expect the format to fit your art. You need to instead fit your art to the format. Okay. So if that means altering your lyrics or altering certain parts, if you really want to be on folk radio or folk whatever, you need to change your lyrics to be more accessible to what they're looking for right now.
I feel like that might be why there's almost no such thing as a Christian music industry anymore, though.
Right.
Because people homogenized themselves out of existence and people just got bored with it.
Yeah.
Sure. It's so white bread.
It's so, it's so there's nothing interesting. It's just,
you white bread yourself out of existence.
Yeah.
I understand the need for people marketing music. I understand the need for DJs and for promoters and stuff like that. But I don't understand the lack of their understanding of needing artists in order to have their jobs. You know what I mean?
And it's such an archaic way of looking at the industry, period.
Right.
It's it's such a system-centric idea as opposed to artist-centric or actual song-centric idea.
Right.
It's 50 years ago we had songs which created this this need for people to hear the songs, which created these jobs where people aggregated the songs and were impresarios for these songs and pushed them out to the people. And after 20 years, that system and that machine became so big that was the point, and people were trying to manipulate that system and game theory that actual system.
Yeah.
And now that system crushed to the ground in 2009 through 2013 or whatever it was.
With the housing bubble.
Yeah, it really did. It was right at the same time.
Yeah.
And now it's people are looking at this that makes no fucking sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes zero sense. You guys are focusing on the wrong part of this equation, period.
Yeah. One of the things I think is really fun to talk with you about, Mallory, taking maybe 3 steps back in the conversation, is when we talk about songwriting and honesty and vulnerability and where creativity comes from, and that's just a wellspring of conversation and speculation.
And there's so many books
There's
about
so many
it.
books about it already. One of the things that made me think about when we were talking about this earlier on in the conversation was how I kind of feel like the religious upbringing that I had, or my experience with Christianity, directly affected the way I wrote songs. And this is not like a big secret. You can look back at like the very first 11D record and all of the like religious overtones and like thoughts and ideas and concepts and stuff that are from songs that I wrote when I was a teenager, from somebody who was completely drinking the Kool-Aid of Protestant youth group culture. And like, I thought in the best world possible, maybe one day I'll become like a super famous Christian musician, and there will be something special about that. And so many people will be won over to the kingdom, and so many people will be like transformed by whatever this truth is.
Did you really feel that?
That I mean, I think like I thought that was the right way to feel.
How
But
did you feel?
did you really feel that?
No,
though?
I mean, like I've been conflicted about that ever since I was a teenager, because there was something that felt vacuous about it. But this is the idea that gets perpetuated. And so instead of writing songs that really just should have been me trying to figure out how to be honest about what I was feeling, instead they were songs reinforcing what I thought I should be feeling in these situations, and ideas about the world that I should have had, instead of just accepting the world that was around me
And exploring the honesty
and exploring
of it.
it as if I don't know.
Well, because at least where I grew up as well, like, because Christianity sees art as unimportant and frivolous. And so if you're going to be creating art, it sure better have a purpose.
Yeah.
Like if you go ahead.
Yeah, it's a functional thing. Like the goal of singing songs in church is to is to either communicate knowledge or to use it as a way to,
Or you're facilitating some group experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely functional. It's facilitating the
Yeah.
group singing together, and we're all together, one thing.
yeah.
one
Heretic
body.
Matt over here. Could you also call that propaganda?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I've never seen it. I don't know.
that's-
But also, if you're not tapping into the Spirit of God, what spirit are you tapping into? There are so many.
Tell me about that
Oh,
for
no.
you, because I know that you and I have probably had some very Scott. Maybe you even did too. Like, wasn't your dad like a worship pastor? He still is a worship pastor.
Yeah,
or?
he directs a choir.
Right,
at a small church
right.
in California.
Right. Yeah.
That's more noble.
So I actually shouldn't have divulged that information. That was yours to share.
No,
I'm just
that's fine.
all of us definitely grew up in like pretty religious households, and I know that off mic we're constantly kind of unpacking and exploring all of that and the weirdness of it, and like trying to figure out what it meant and what it was for, and how to reconcile any of it, and do we do away with it? Do we hang on to some stuff? Is it all well intentioned? Is it just kind of icky? Like why do we never feel one way or the other about it? It's always,
I mean, it is partially icky. Like once you step out of it, you go, "Oh, I'm glad I wasn't there." But I feel like that's any incubator too. So like I'm thinking about the way that I wrote as a kid, right? And how as a kid I needed boundaries. Like I needed material. Nothing had really happened to me up to that point. And so I was in this incubator of Christianity, and so I was going to write about Christianity, and I was going to really push it to its limits and kind of just be in this Christian artistic incubator and keep pushing it while exploring like what I really feel until I outgrew it. And then there's a lot of complications that happen there. And I think the trying to exit that space is where the complications come in. It's not when you're exploring inside of it. For me, it wasn't when I was exploring inside of it. And it's not here on the other side of it either. It was that transition out and saying, like, actually, these things that I was writing about, I don't know if I really believe them. And I know that I don't believe them because I explored that so far through art, through writing.
Right.
And so I kind of wrote myself out of that incubator.
Does
into
that make
another.
invalid the songs you wrote before?
No, and that's the thing is I don't think that it does. I think they were terrible songs, because they were terrible
because
songs.
you were a younger songwriter, right?
Yeah, I think also I just didn't know. I think that a lot of the music that I was given was not very good music. Like I wasn't. Some of it was really good. Like I was a huge fan of like Sarah Groves growing up, and she is a really great songwriter. I think, and I still will sometimes listen to her, but like most of the other stuff isn't very good. Like if I'm only listening to worship songs, then I mean, I guess it would be no different than listening to only top 40 pop radio. Like there's no substance there a lot of the times. And sometimes you'll come across a really good one. You'll be like, oh, dang, that's a good song. But otherwise it's just this machine that's pushing things out.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel like those songs are invalid. I do feel like they were bad songs, but I also didn't know what a good song was yet.
I think with music, or with Christian music specifically, when I grew up, I wanted to be a Christian musician. I thought, because that was the music that I was listening to. And very early on, I found out that there is a difference between Christian music and what we called secular music, right?
Right.
I love
And
that word.
and that there were certain things you had to do if you're going to be a Christian musician. And
what were those things that you were taught that you have to do?
like there had to be a message, like a positive message.
Yeah.
No midriff.
No midriff, yeah.
Even for you, Scott?
Scott struggled with the midriff.
JV babasketball star?
The 90s was a weird time.
Right.
Talk about the moral majority.
Yeah, but you had to present yourself in a way that would be pleasing to God. Whatever
that mean?
means. Like in the 90s, it just meant like looking clean cut, or not looking clean cut, but like having this hidden, like the sneaky Jesus.
Seeming mysterious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like there are all those unspoken rules that you had to abide by if you're going to be a Christian musician. And I think at a certain point, somebody said that songwriting was about like expressing yourself. Like songwriting was about like giving your own experience and sharing that with someone else. And when I started to write from that standpoint, where it was specifically about me, and it was specifically about what I was actually going through, or not going through, it was it became. I started to realize that Christian music was very disingenuous, and that as much as
Disingenuous for you, or disingenuous period?
I think kind of disingenuous period. It was. I mean, it certainly was disingenuous for me. Mm-hmm. It didn't make sense for me to act in the way that I was acting, because that wasn't how I actually felt.
I feel like Christian music has an end game in mind.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like whatever
it's functional.
Yeah, like whatever you want. It's
yeah.
trying to win people to the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It clearly has a message. And then I feel like what secular music was in comparison to that, and I hate that terminology because I don't think there should be one or the other. I think that like secular music was just like, this is the world, we're living in it. Here is our take on what's happening.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's right. Yeah. Doesn't mean we're pointing you to something greater. It just means here's some human shit happening.
Yeah.
And guess what? Human shit's happening to you too. And maybe we're firing on all cylinders at the same time. And the same thing that's happening to me is happening to you. And I wrote a song about it. We can share this moment.
What about Breakfast at Tiffany's?
Yes. And now all of a sudden it's like that. It was those moments in music that I was so attracted to. And I would love listening to music that had profanity in it.
Eminem. Forgot about Drake.
Yes. Because it was just like, these people that are writing these songs are not scared of my parents the way that I'm scared of my parents.
Yeah.
And these people that are writing these songs are not afraid that the youth group will excommunicate them for saying what they say.
Which is why your parents don't want you to listen to it.
Which is why your parents don't want you to listen to it. But at the same time, I was like,
the social aspect of it, right?
I was like, this is just
aspect.
so brave compared to my life that I was living.
Right.
I was like, it just must take so much chutzpah to be able to say like these kinds of things and admit these things about yourself, admit that you're human, admit that like, that's how I feel. So what?
Yeah.
I don't know what it means. You don't know what it means. I'll figure it out. I'm 18. Like, whatever. Yeah. It's part of growing up.
See, I grew up with secular music. I didn't grow up with Christian music.
Well, all of us did, because
Yeah.
we're bad Christians. I mean, it's...
Until I burned all my CDs. Well, I actually sold them.
Right.
I wanted to make a profit.
Capitalist Jesus.
Cracked mine in half after summer camp.
Oh, wow. You cracked them.
I never did. I never did.
You
I just sold them.
No one actually ever told me to either. Like I might be a few years past, like a few years behind all of that, but no one ever told me.
No one ever told me either. I just somehow figured out that was the next logical step.
Was to burn all of your Christian CDs.
To sell them, Matt.
To sell them, right?
Not the Christian
right,
CDs, the secular
The
CDs.
secular CDs, yeah.
Sell your CDs.
Yeah, it became. I was talking to my brother-in-law recently, and we were talking about what a zealous young person I was, and he actually said, "Yeah, your parents were not up to your speed, but by the time you weren't a Christian anymore, they had far surpassed you.
Yeah.
It's like you led your parents into what it meant to be a Christian zealot, which is a lot of responsibility for me on my parents.
Wow.
But I think that it's true.
You actually led two people to the kingdom.
Yeah, it's true. And then I left. I was like, here's the keys. Shut off the alarm and just walk right in. But it was this.
Shut up. The code is 666. Oh, shit.
But it was this like kind of realization for me that like, oh, I didn't like my parents were definitely Christians. We were definitely super involved in church, definitely going 6 out of 7 days a week. We rest on the Sabbath. And so we just like, I understood what was going on, but it wasn't my parents that led me to selling my CDs. It wasn't my parents that led me to reading my Bible 3 times a day and skipping lunch to read my Bible. Like, it wasn't my parents that asked that of me.
What was it?
I certainly got affirmed to do that, but it wasn't my parents. It was music. It was buying into that culture. It was, what was that Christian teen girls magazine?
11tyseven.
No, the Bridal.
We're not a
or
girls magazine.
It was some sort of like weird. I think it was called Bridal, which sounds horrible now.
Bridal?
Bridal.
Oh, Brie.
Brie.
Was it Brie?
There it is. It was Brie.
I don't know anything about it.
Sorry,
Why would I know what the teen girl magazine was?
I felt bridled, I guess. Yeah.
How did you know that?
Next time on 11 Life.
But like, it was just this. It was the natural because we were all smart kids. Because if you enter into a culture and you really drink the Kool-Aid and you say, no, I'm in it. Like, I want to believe this.
Yeah.
If you follow Christian music and if you follow Christian culture, at least what we now know as conservative Christian culture, to its natural end, like, you're going to sell your CDs.
What year was that, though? This was like late 90s, early 90s?
Late 90s, early 2000s.
It had to be late 90s, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, and none of us have been in that culture for a while.
Right.
I have tangentially. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've had tentacles in it, but I've not been a child growing up with Christian music in 2018. Do you think that's changed? Like, the presentation and, like, the logical end of it?
I think it probably depends on where you go.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I actually wondered the same thing just the other day. I mean, because like,
the other day. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, because the internet, like
Because
there's
the
so
internet.
much, there's so much more that
Well, I had the internet.
I mean,
You didn't have
AIM
the
Messenger.
internet, though.
yeah.
I heard it. Skater Boy 89.
Whoa.
Wow.
Was that your screen name?
BOI.
Oh, man. I was
Wow.
Taymel 14 for like Taylor Hanson. I felt very slutty.
I felt very
Oh
funny.
my gosh.
I conjoined our names.
Oh, wow. That's kind of amazing.
That makes you one in the eyes of God.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's true.
That's your screen
That's
name.
true. I'm more connected, if that's the point. I'm more connected to Taylor Hanson than Scott.
Scomal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love that. So I think all of us have had some sort of, and actually I don't want to call it trauma. We can call it weirdness or
Trauma.
fucked upness or whatever it is. Yeah,
I think
for some people it is.
fucked-upness is much better than trauma.
Sure. Yeah. Because
for
there are
curbing
people
that
who've
for us.
actually been through trauma. And I feel like what we experienced was just the oddity of the right place and the right time in the right country, in the right place in that country with the right set of parents that had their experience. And what does that look like for you guys now? What does that mean for you? Having a lot of the shared experiences of kind of late 90s, early 2000s, like Protestant American Christian culture, like where do you feel like you are now in terms of all of that stuff?
With what? With Christianity?
Sure,
or
yeah.
with...
Yeah.
so I went to a private Christian college, went to Biola University out in Los Angeles. And it was at that point that like I finally got like really grossed out by what American evangelical Christianity was. And so I joined an Anglican Catholic church, and I got really devout. I got I was confirmed in the Anglican Catholic Church. We did.
First of all, congrats.
Thank you.
Slow clap.
But like I got really into that like traditional Christianity, and there was something really beautiful about it, and I
What?
Well, I think there was like this centering thing for me at the time where I could say, I'm no longer a part of the evangelical church, but I am still connected to the same God who I was connected to as an evangelical.
It's like
right?
I'm not part of this branch, but I'm still connected to the trunk.
Yeah. And so I got really into that, and then at a certain point, I think I realized, what, this isn't working for me either. Like I think it's great when people can have faith in something. I think I started to realize that their version of God wasn't the same version of God that I wanted to put my faith in. And so I left that church too. And I feel like I'm just kind of floating
now
out,
you live in a
here
camper.
somewhere. Yeah. And,
That's how we got here.
yeah. And like, I don't know.
Literally.
Literally, yeah.
I think the evangelical church of the 1990s and early 2000s is a lot different than the church even of the 1950s, the evangelical church
Right,
of the 1950s,
Yeah.
or the Protestant church of the Reformation, or the Catholic Church. Like, but it's still like there is still so much control that the church exercises over its congregants, and it is still a really manipulative, money-making force. Like that is something about Christianity that hasn't changed since its inception, and so like you could probably say that that's not true Christianity. That's probably true, but that's kind of been my experience with the church and my experience with the church of history. Like,
I think we wouldn't be so mad about it if we didn't love it. Like if it wasn't one of the first things we ever loved, it was Christianity. Like I think we wouldn't still be sitting here talking about it if we didn't love it so much, and if we didn't believe that it had something to offer. But then all of its iterations failed us in some way, or we failed it in some way, and then we step away and we go, oh, maybe there's something more than this, or maybe, I don't know. You kind of, you shed that. I had a similar experience to Scott where I removed myself from my parents' church, from what I grew up with. And I tried a different kind of Christianity. And then I tried a different one after that. And I kept going through and being like, no, there's something here. It's like you're running through this empty house, like looking in every room, trying to find it.
That's a really great metaphor for that. Yeah.
And when it's all comes back the same, you just sort of have to leave the house for a while and just hope that you can come back and there's going to be something there in it. And I feel like we, I don't know. That's how I feel about it. That's how.
So what
we
are you
feel
looking
about
for?
it.
Like, what's in the room? Like, when you find it, what is it?
Just to be treated like a person, like going in there and finding out that like, oh, there are other people here who don't think that I'm inferior to Scott, or I can go in here and hear a bunch of people who believe that we're all going to go to the same place at the end, that we're all equal, that I'm deserving of love and that they're deserving of love. And
so you have a very specific, a very defined expectation of what's in the room when you open the door.
Well, I think Jesus did too.
Yeah, I think I think I have trouble, when I see what the church is made up of, and it's made up of a lot of people who have grabbed that Christian sticker and put it on their back and said, I am a Christian. This is a Christian thing.
Scott loves stickers.
That's yeah. Stickers and T-shirts.
It's a scratch and fish.
Yeah, it's but they took on that tag that says I am a Christian. I am one of God's. And you know, when realizing that there's a lot of God just out in everybody, in everything, and so,
Even in the Buddhists.
yeah,
Even in Coldplay.
Even there.
Even in Coldplay.
Even in Coldplay.
Oh my
I've said this on this podcast multiple times. Coldplay is a better Christian band than most Christian bands. I'll stand by that shit too.
I really appreciate those sentiments. I think that they're quite beautiful and very honest. Yeah, I feel like I've had some people have reached out like that listen to the podcast and they're like, "Well, why are you so negative? What am I trying to say? What's the problem that they have? Why do you always want to talk about the bad things?" And to me, it's not that I set out every day thinking all I want to do is talk about the bad things. It's that I've been hurt and I'm trying to make sense of it. And I feel like there are a lot of other people that have been hurt or that they have walked through this specific brand of Christianity and whatever this is at this one place and moment in history and time and have said, it's not what it said it was, or I can't rectify my conscience, like my actual conscience with what happens within the system or where the system ends up or what it leads to logically for me. And so I think it's onto something. And I think that I've experienced something really beautiful about it. Like even in my search, like when I left Protestantism and like tried Catholicism for a little bit and tried different churches, I did very much the same thing that you guys did. And it was like at the end of all of that, I was like, I'm still me, person, human, Matt, struggling with failures and addictions and questions and problems and just needing a way in which to exist in the world and to share my experience with other people. And all of these different things kind of seem like they just sort of show up empty-handed in some ways, not in all of them. The experiences that I've had that have meant the most to me have not been with any of these religions as a whole. They've literally just been with people. There have been people within the Christian church that mean so much more to me than the idea or the mass marketed idea of Christianity will ever mean to me, because it's something real. It's something I touched and tasted and felt and experienced in this moment with them. It was our own specific vibration that we had. Like, and you guys experience that with people on the road all the time. I experience the more life that I'm not afraid to live and go out and meet people and experience things and cultures, and like, I experienced that too.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of times I come back to this thing. We've had this conversation before where I'm like, once you kind of see, you can't unsee anymore. Like once you've had an experience, once you've kind of stepped out of whatever that version of Christianity is, there's no going back, because it feels like a pale imitation of something that it's trying to be. And it just feels like a waste of time.
Well, maybe it really just isn't. It is an incubator. Like, what if what if the whole point of Christianity isn't an end goal? It's a beginning goal. Like, what if it really is just a place to help you sort of start to form ideas that the world can be a broken place, but there are really wonderful people in it, and everyone is loved, and then you move on from that, and you don't need Christianity to have Christianity, I guess.
Right.
I mean, it can just be a starting point.
Well, the thing is, when you have Christians telling you to be afraid of everything that's not Christian, when you have Christians telling you to be afraid of every idea that comes up against them, and that,
they've been there too long.
Right.
Then they've just been in Christianity too long. It's time for them to go.
It's like, why are we so threatened by just other ideas? Why does it just take this small, like, little thing to kind of unhinge all of this philosophy about what your idea of God is and who he is and why he is, and if he's a he, and if it's something greater than that, if it's
Props not.
Right. I just
props not binary.
Yeah. And I feel like we're not the only ones experiencing this right now. It's not just, singer-songwriters who go to folk,
like watch it.
things that are experiencing this. I think that it's indicative also of like people our age, of our culture. I think that it's a much bigger conversation, and people are, something's happening where it feels more safe for people to wrestle with this kind of stuff. And I just want to be the first to say that the longer I'm alive, the longer I'm in this conversation, the less I know. And I'm so comfortable saying that now. Like I'm so much happier just saying, I don't know. I don't know where I'm gonna end up.
Afraid too.
I'm less afraid. I'm less afraid of being wrong. And my parents didn't feel that way. It was actually like they weren't the kids that went to college for a semester and then were like, oh man, we've got it. Like, why can't the world just totally see, what's going on? Like, take down the system kind of people. Like they weren't like that at all. They were just like, we're just living day to day.
But some people's parents were.
Oh, some people's parents were. That was not my experience, but I know that there are those out there.
That would have been so cool.
We're not the first wheeze.
But you know what? Like, what if your parents were that? You probably would have, the pendulum would have swung in the opposite direction.
Maybe.
Or I'd be doing more drugs.
And on next week's Celebrity Life, Mallory does drugs. Audio version.
The pendulum swings.
It's just a lot of like heavy breathing and like a couple of farts in there.
Yeah. We just play the Kesha record.
Yeah.
Wow.
The first one.
Yeah.
TikTok.
That's awesome. Any other thoughts about where you are right now? Something that helps you every day when you wake up?
Like
and
spiritually or
a strong
creatively?
idea that you found that you can come back to, some sort of a tree trunk that maybe you didn't have before.
But we want the one sentence answer.
Just one, 5 words
maybe.
or less.
5 words or less.
No.
That's the most profound no I have ever heard in my entire life.
That was great. That's all that needs to be said. I don't think there's any. You don't have to explain that at all.
It's just nothing. I don't know. This past year, I had Mallory write down this poem that I thought was really beautiful. It's called "The Art of Losing," and the whole point of the poem is like encouraging you to lose something every day,
right?
And because nothing is permanent, and so I put that beside, like, on my side of the bed, and it's kind of been this helpful reminder that it's okay to lose things. It's okay to
move past them.
Yeah, to move on.
Yeah,
make room for something else.
Mm-hmm. And it encourages me to think that life is longer than I think it is right now. You know, that there always can be something more tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
it's also shorter.
And it's also shorter. Yeah. Like, so use it now, because like, don't spend your time doing something you don't love doing, because it is short.
When we started this year and we were getting back into the camper, so we take like a couple week break here and there just to like kind of have a start over point for ourselves, to kind of mark time for ourselves. Because a lot of times we're going through different time zones and different climates and different seasons really rapidly, or really in a strange way. So we sometimes like to take time to mark time. When we were doing our big camper cleaning at the beginning of the year, like scrubbing walls and stuff like that, I asked Scott, are you going to keep this poem up, The Art of Losing? Because we had lost so much last year. Like, we had lost our best friend. He had broken up with us. We lost our dog, who was a really integral part of our lives. And we lost several other things along the way, but it was a year of losing for us. And I kind of asked Scott, like, did you do this to us? Like, did you make me participate in this thing that called down, right. losing? And I said, do you want to keep this up this year? And he was like, yeah, I think we will. And it was just sort of this like, it didn't come from a place of strength. It came from a place of curiosity. And I think we've just kind of approached this year with an air of just utter curiosity. Like, I wonder what will happen next. And that has kind of become a mantra for us. Also, I had another friend who was between jobs for a while, and he was just lamenting the fact that, like, he literally had no idea what was going to happen, if they were going to be able to pay their bills, if they were going to if they were going to move cities, if they weren't. And he was going on about how stressful this whole thing was. And he then, like, kind of stopped and just looked so out of sorts. And I went, I wonder what'll happen next. Like, just like in this excited, like, I wonder, because like, this sounds crazy, like what you're going through. So if you almost kind of turn it on its head to like, not, oh my God, what's the worst that could happen next? But rather like, I wonder what it's going to be. Like I think this year is a year of curiosity and exploring parts of ourselves and parts of the world that we just didn't consider to be interesting before. And I think that is where we are right now, spiritually, creatively, camperly.
One thing Matt and I have talked about before was like dealing with anxiety. The best thing to do is like try to separate yourself from it and just watch the traffic. You just like sit on the side of the road and just watch the traffic go. Like, I don't have to be in any single one of those cars, but I can acknowledge that the cars exist and I can watch the traffic. And it's like, I wonder what will happen next. Let's just sit back and watch the traffic.
Right.
Let's just see what happens.
Yeah. I love that.
That's really great. You know, Indianapolis, they literally built a park in the middle of all their freeways so you can sit and watch the traffic.
That's the most Indiana thing I've ever heard.
Because that's what they kind of said too. They're like, well, we don't got rivers or beautiful things, but we do have interstates.
We can watch 79 Corvette.
It's either watch traffic or build the largest hot dog in the world.
So if you really want to find yourself, go to Indiana. That's really the place to really work it out.
I love that.
Or just don't do that.
This is awesome. It's always so much fun to get to catch up and hang out with you guys. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, it's great to hang out.
Candy and hanging out with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's really cool to be here.
You're always welcome here. I guess we'll just leave it there. That's great. You guys were awesome. It was fantastic.
Cool.
Great information.
You guys were great too.
Great everything.
A lot of fun. Good hanging out.
I can think of worse things to do.
I can think of worse ways to fill your time. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of 11 Life. If you want to hear the music that the Rough Tumble create, they actually put out an EP on Rock Candy Recordings not too long ago, and there will be links to that in the show notes. They also have another more recent album out that is absolutely fantastic if you are a fan of folk music. Yeah, check it out. Thanks for spending time with us today on 11 Life. We love y'all. See you next week.
Life is a production of Rock Candy Recordings